Hello and happy Tuesday, which is of course my book reviews day, and today I would like to talk to you about Blood of the Four by Christopher Golden and Tim Lebbon. I'm not going to lie, I bought this as a blind purchase. I did not read the description, did not read any reviews. I bought it because it was a great price, it was signed by both authors, and well, I've heard great things from both authors, so I'm thinking like, oh, blood, it's got blood in the title, it has to do with vampires. I didn't expect a epic fantasy that is a standalone adventure, standalone volume in 460 pages. But man, I'm glad I picked it up. This is definitely going to be the type of novel that's for fans of, well, might be a little shades of gray there. I would say it's for fans of A Song of Ice and Fire by George R. R. Martin, because it's very reminiscent of that. But those fans are probably, this might be a little tame compared to those novels. I mean, there's still lots of sex, there's lots of violence, but it's not as extreme as you might get in Martin's novels. But you do have 4 point of view characters. So, you know, if you're a fan of multiple point of views and kind of seeing it from all walks of life, then this might be the novel for you. It almost could have benefited from being multiple volumes because I didn't want it to end. I mean, it is split internally as book 1 and book 2. But it could have been like fleshed out even more into 2 massive volumes, and I would have been fine with that. The world of Quandis is a very interesting land, particularly with its dealings in magic. So like I said, there's 4 main point of view characters. The first one introduced to is Princess Phaela, who is very manipulative. She's a princess who wants to kind of take power for herself. She has plans for the throne. She's sneaking around in the corridors and tunnels of the castle, of the main castle. Very much gave me Steerpike vibes from the Gormenghast trilogy, if you've read that. Well, I guess Steerpike from the first 2 titles of the Gormenghast trilogy. But yeah, she's very manipulative. She's very much almost like the antagonist of the novel, but you're following her very frequently. She's probably the most frequently visited of the 4 protagonists, although they are split close to evenly throughout. Next up, you have Blaine, who is he's formerly a Bodgeman. So Bodgemen are the lowest of the low in the class system. I don't know if you can call it a caste system per se, because there's really only 2 castes. There's Bodgemen, who are known based on their blonde hair, deep blue eyes. They're noted by a serpentine brand in their arms. And yeah, they're almost like slaves in a way. I don't know that slaves is quite the right term for it. I mean, they're very much working around in the world in here, within Quandis, within the city of Lartha. But everybody else kind of ignores their existence. So you have the Bodgeman, and you have the everybody else. So Blaine was born Bodgeman, but he is kind of escaping that life by joining the priesthood. And through the priesthood, they are going to learn on how to very minuscule amounts of magic, how to deal with said magic. And magic is probably the most interesting aspect of this world, because this is a fantasy novel, so you're going to have some magic, but the magic in here, it's dangerous. It's almost forbidden upon. Like, you don't want to be accessing the magic. It's a faux pas. It's addictive, much like a drug. I mean, there are actual drugs in the novel itself, but, you know, magic itself is addictive as well. But it will, like, rend you apart from the inside out. It's not your everyday kind of magic. The titular 4 that's referring to, Blood of the Four, that is like the 4 gods, the 4 founders of magic who each kind of dealt with a different element. They each are represented within Lartha, you know, so you're praying to the Blood of the Four. You know, by saying like, my God. But yeah, so Blaine is trying to learn how to use magic himself through the priesthood. Next one of our protagonists is Admiral Hilarte. I'm not going to say her first name because that might be kind of a spoiler for the preceding chapter. She has risen to the rank of an admiral, if I could speak English correctly, within the fleet, which is very impressive considering her own background, which, like I said, I'm not going to go into. I mean, it's revealed right away, but it's still a nice surprise when you get to it. And then finally, you have Demos Calistrate, who is from one of the royal families, one of the uppity kind of families within Quandus, who is going to face some very hard times. And yeah, so you have these 4 separate storylines. The 4 do all intermingle, and they all kind of come together into the final act, where pardon my French, the shit hits the fan. And it is one hell of a final act. I did not want this novel to end. Like I said, it almost could have benefited from being a longer novel or being split into multiple parts. I mean, this is under 500 pages, and there's a lot of fantasy, a lot of world building within those 500 pages. So much so that I wish there was more. I want to know what's beyond Quandus. I mean, there's the outer ring and the inner ring here at the islands, but we got pirates to the north, the hotlands to the south, but you don't really get to journey beyond that. And this came out 6 years ago. I don't know if Christopher Golden or Tim Lebbon have any desire to revisit the world, but I hope they do. I think it was an absolute blast of a time. Like I said, if you're a grimdark fan, you're a fan of Joe Abercrombie or George R. R. Martin, you're probably going to like Blood of the Four. Don't expect it being as in-depth as Martin's novels, because like I said, they are kind of constricted to their 500 pages, 460 pages actually. So you're not going to get quite the world building that a Martin novel will have. They don't have nearly as much space to work with. But man, what a fun read. Like I said, it's really interesting in terms of the way it deals with magic. It's not your traditional magic within a fantasy novel, and that was kind of a nice little change of pace, in my opinion. One thing that I do have to say that I have to really commend him for is that I couldn't tell when one author was writing or when another author was writing. Now, obviously, when you have collaborative novels like this, you don't necessarily have one author writing certain parts, another author writing the others. But I did recently read Indigo, a novel that both of these authors had contributed to. And I did a review on that on my channel a few months back. And I did mention in that there were certain chapters where you could definitely tell it was written by a different author. Like the tone would change or the voice would change. You didn't have that with Blood of the Four. I cannot speak English today. So I have to commend Golden and Lebbon for that. I know both of them are primarily like horror authors and thriller authors. So if you're going in expecting a horror or thriller novel, you're going to be very disappointed. But if you want to see them take a swing at epic fantasy, I think they definitely hit a home run with Blood of the Four. But this can be purchased wherever books are sold. I mean, it did come out 6 years ago. I don't know if there's ever going to be a small press edition, but this is the type of book that I could see Subterranean Press or Grimmo Press doing an incredible job with. This particular copy was purchased from VJ Books back several months back when they were doing their going out of business sale. I don't think they're currently going out of business anymore, but I don't think this is still available. But they have plenty of other signed books on their site, so I'll put a link in the description below. Seriously, check out Blood of the Four by Christopher Golden and Tim Lebbon if you're a fan of grimdark fantasy or you just want to read a nice standalone fantasy story with some very dark and twisted magic. Not that you actually see how it's used in dark and twisted ways, but that it does dark and twisted things to you as a person. It's a very, like I said, interesting take. So please check out both of these authors. I do at least one book review a week on Tuesdays, so please consider liking and subscribing. I have plenty of other unboxing videos in between here and there to keep you entertained in the meantime. Speaking of which, I always have to mention this with Christopher Golden, but if you are not subscribed, it's Terrific's page. You should subscribe to him as well. And try to tell me that he doesn't look exactly like Christopher Golden. They look eerily similar. Never seen him in the same place at once. I've never seen him at a book signing for Christopher Golden. I've never been to a book signing for Christopher Golden, so I shouldn't say that. But, it's kind of suspicious. So anyways, thank you guys very much for watching, and we'll see you around next time.